Fred, our guest this week is Derrel Sims from Houston, Texas. So we have Derrel on the air. It's going to be more of a radio broadcast this time. We couldn't get the Skype going, but either way, you know, he's got a ton of information to cover with us.
Well, he gave you a good presentation at the last conference.
Yeah, he spoke here in Pittsburgh. How long ago was that, Derrel? Maybe 2 or 3 years ago?
About 2.5 years ago, I think.
Yeah, and Derrel's going to be at the Philly conference in Bucks County this October 28th and 29th. So, Derrel, I know you were stuck up in Oklahoma. Your car broke down. There was an earthquake. You said you were doing you were up there for some research. What was that involved?
Actually, I was meeting with some Native American friends of mine that some of them are related. And I was talking to one of them about some just generic stuff. And anyway, he's very reluctant to talk. So once he found out that what I knew, and I'm telling you, he opened up like a can of worms. They were crawling everywhere. And then he started telling me about the little people.
Do you mean
that got interesting?
Because you're about 6'5", 6'4", you mean just people shorter than you, or
when he means he is probably maybe 5'4" at the most. And when he says little people, he means little.
Oh, okay.
And he means the little people that hang around at night around the reservation up there, and kind of scares people. So they tell people to stay away at night.
Yeah, you see, I that's an area I got to look into next, is Native American beliefs, because there is something to it. And you know, I was telling Fred before the show, you know, I've had this activity that really latched onto my family from when I lived in Oklahoma in 1989 and 90. You know, and I heard a Native American chant in the house, in the hallway. There was footsteps on the ceiling, and it followed us to New Jersey. And I'm actually now, for the first time, saying, is this related to some sort of Native American thing there, maybe where the house was built? I don't know, but it's an area that I got to look into. And I mean, it was even a demonic attack upon me that occurred. But Fred, you got a question about feathers. Do you want to ask Derrel about that?
We're doing a lot of research down in Wetzel County, down in West Virginia, Bigfoot research down there, and we found it's like a grave site. The dirt is totally different on it, and it had a tree on it. And the thing with this, it's 5 miles back in the woods. Okay, I mean, there's no humans come around there. And we believe that it's Bigfoot down there. But anyhow, a couple guys went down there about a month ago, and they cleaned the grave off totally. They took a tree thing off of it and all of that. When we went down there the other day, we found like 12 feathers in a little hole there. Like, does that have any significance? I mean, somebody was saying that the Native Americans used to put feathers on graves that to show approval or something.
Sometimes it depends on the tribe, and it really depends on an individual too. Some people do it for different reasons. I'm Native American myself, Native American Irish, and if for my father's funeral, I had my son carrying feathers off my medicine wheel. It's an honoring what it was. And it depends on the tribe, and it depends on the individual, what their intent and purpose was. But the main thing is, in general, that I'd like to say is that 45% of the people that we found in the abduction phenomenon, we have 1,850 some cases plus worldwide, and I'm telling you, the 45% of these people are Native American, Indian, Irish, or Celtic.
Right. But my thing is, like,
a staggering number.
You know, what is buried there, and what's cleaning it up 5 miles back in the woods all the time? It is interesting. One of my friends in New Mexico was exhuming, as an 18-year-old kid, exhuming a Native American grave one time, and he ended up with lung fungus. So make sure you're wearing the appropriate breathing apparatus if you're going to do this sort of thing. Sure. Well, I don't intend on digging it. Whatever's there could stay there.
I'm glad to hear that.
Well, I mean, I do not want to mess with them. You know what I mean? I mean, I respect them. I mean, it's like right now. I mean, it's not here. The stuff that's going out west right now about them with bulldozers and the gas wells out there taking all of their land away and that out there, their graveyards and that. It's totally wrong.
Yeah, well, you're getting scratch marks on the trees too, right? High up on the trees.
Well, what also happened, we was out there, we seen something peeking around a tree about 100 yards away. And then we heard a tree fall, okay, which is very odd. You know, it's falling while we're there. I mean, you could hear the branches breaking out. So as we was leaving, we're walking down the path, and there was two big things up in a tree that somebody or something put up there. And it came to a V. And as we was standing there, we was looking, and there was a tree there, and it looked like somebody was pushing something. We walked over, and we seen two big scratch marks in this tree, and the juice was, I mean, the sap was still coming out. So whatever was there, maybe 2 minutes before us, but we didn't see it. And to me, I think that it was somebody going to push the tree over on the path, because that has happened down there before. But again, something to put the whole, I mean, the way they brought it down, they had to have super strength, because I mean, they was in that tree. You know what I mean? I don't understand. Huh?
That is that's very significant. That's we have. I'm not a Bigfoot investigator per se, but of course anything that goes on in the phenomena we look at. But I've got several samples from a urine sample and a fingernail. And from a adolescent, and I've got a group of hair samples I've had since 1990, I think 1991. And anyway, we've had them studied at the hair sample studied at the University of Washington through one of my research associate, Mary Flory there, who did primate research, and their best determination was those hair samples were simian, or ape, so to speak. But they were not, none of the ape family that they knew about that they had any reference to whatsoever in their database.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit, Uncovering Aliens. You were in that TV series. How many episodes did you guys end up doing?
We did four in the series for Uncovering Aliens, and I really enjoyed doing the show with Maureen Ellsbury and Mike Barra and Stephen. It was a lot of fun. But I don't know, I have a little different take than Stephen did. He was there as a contactee for the specific purpose of showing a glaring distinction in the UFO phenomena concerning abductions and contacts. So I think that was the main purpose of him being there, was to show the side of the alien phenomena, the belief that they're here to save the planet, fix the ozone hole, and all that. So we got along very well. I really enjoyed them. But we did four, and the last one we did was in Sedona, and there I found a radioactive trace approximately 30 feet across in a perfect circle right outside the Bradshaw Ranch.
Yeah, it seems like, I mean, if you look at right now, I don't know if you have anything else in the pipeline for a TV show. You know, I think the Hangar One TV show is very realistic, but, you know, they took it off even though it had better ratings than Ancient Aliens. And you kind of wonder, like, do they want to only show the stuff that's entertainment? Because Ancient Alien TV show is just entertainment. It's 80% made up. You know, it's almost like the commercials for Jack Links with the Bigfoot. You know, that's kind of annoyed the Bigfoot investigators, but it's funny and it's entertainment. I get the impression they don't really want a serious show on about the reality of this. I don't know, what's your opinion, Derrel?
Well, in our show that we did, our ratings were higher than the Bigfoot show and some ghost shows.
Yeah,
we did real well, and we couldn't figure out why they were going to cancel it. And what happened was that the people that were that originally set this thing up, and that called me on the thing to begin with. They moved on to other shows. They do this in this industry a lot.
Yeah.
About every year or so, they'll end up with new jobs and new networks, and the people that inherited it, in other words, they literally didn't know what to do with the show because it's kind of just dropped in their lap.
Yeah.
They just didn't know what to do, and so we kept getting ratings that were really high, and they wanted to let it go, and finally they just waited for a time period where there was nothing going on with anybody, and then they took a ratings test at that point, and it showed a little lower than the others, and they just dropped it. The ratings not any good. That made no sense to me whatsoever. I just did it.
I mean, it's like, it's like the History Channel. We were drawing 1.4 million. Ancient Aliens was barely getting 1 million. And but they were getting a little younger crowd, but they were on earlier. They were on at 9. We were on at 10.
Yeah.
People go out on Friday nights at 10. So, I mean, the whole thing didn't make too much sense to me. And like you said, they move on because their model, it looks like, in my opinion, is to get the shows done as cheaply as possible with new talent. And when you get to seasons 3 and 4, you actually got to start paying these people good money. They don't pay you much in the first 2 seasons. And
that's true.
Yeah, and then they just move on. They just get something else, do a different spin. Now, what you see right now on television really is the demonic is starting to, which they never really showed. There were hauntings and ghost shows, but now you see shows about Lucifer, about Damien. There's a show coming on Fox called The Exorcist. So they're looking actually at that demonic side of it, the malevolent side, which I find hugely interesting because I've had my own encounter in that area. As a matter of fact, I just produced a book. I sent it to the publisher yesterday called The Ufologist, The Haunting of John Ventre, which is everything I know on this end. And I also got some interesting UFO theories in there. But yeah, I mean, do you have anything else in that area? Any shows in the pipeline? Anything going on?
Well, I just came back from filming 2 shows about a month ago, a month and a half ago, I guess, for Ancient Aliens, and I went out and filmed another show for a new program that's coming on that they have to keep quiet about until they break the news on their, you know how that works.
Yeah.
So I did a shoot for them, and it was a really remarkable case where I've got the individual is an assistant attorney general who just retired, and he is absolutely remarkable witness that had UFOs when he was in the military come over a nuclear base, and messed with their nukes, scared everybody half to death. And then he, besides his UFO and abduction accounts, ended up with some really interesting objects inside his leg, which he believes to be alien implants, which we're looking at now. And then he had a series of encounters that he was amazed about, and he couldn't figure it. It really confused him. And then he asked me about it, and I said, well, the alien that's mimicking a human being, I said, and he says, what the weird thing is, he said, Derrel says she's got a bouffant wig. It's obviously a wig, and and why? I said, I don't understand this. None of it makes sense. And I laughed, and I said, after I listened to his story and heard the whole thing and detailed everything in catalog, said, well, here's something interesting. I said, we have the exact same entity, same person with a bouffant wig, that numerous people who did not believe in any of this, nor that story, ended up seeing her in numerous events down in Houston, Texas, 25 years ago before I ever met you. And I showed him the drawings, and I mean, his jaw dropped. He said, that's her. And I said, not only that, but she's using a red Escort car. And I said, you want to know? I said, I'm a private investigator, so I ran the plates whenever we found out what they were. And the plates were stolen. And I said, guess where? And he said, where? And that's the Dallas, Texas. And he says, oh my gosh, he got freaked out at that point because he lives in Dallas, Texas, where his events are occurring right now. really bizarre case.
Yeah, there's some really strange stuff out there. So now, what's your background? You were CIA. Tell us a little bit about your background, because we know you're a private investigator now, but what was your background?
My background, from an investigative point of view, is I was a volunteer during the Vietnam War and ended up as a senior investigator in the military police officer. And I spent time in Korea, and I also spent 2 years in Central Intelligence Agency in covert operations. Basically what I did was I provided security and also was a martial arts instructor in the Central Intelligence Agency and basically at the spy school where spies are trained and that sort of thing, where they're trained for field operations and so on.
Okay.
And I've been a private investigator for over 30 years, and I use all of those skills, besides the fact that I'm a hypnotic anesthesia therapist and a master level in hypnotherapy and a master level in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. That's the Tony stuff that you see on TV advertised, him doing things, phobia cures and things like that in minutes. So I use all of those skills to bring to bear on the phenomena, but as well as to help and assist abductees and contactees that I work with.
Okay. Now I know one of the things about you came up with that method of using a fluorescent light because during these abduction cases, I guess they leave some trace evidence behind. Tell us how you came upon that. Was it a particular case, or what made you want to use a fluorescent light?
Great question. And the answer to that is, was working with a lady in Houston, Texas. My senior investigator and I were interviewing her on a case. She had some strange events that she could not explain what was going on with her. And of course, the obvious to us what was happening is an abduction encounter. And at that point, I said, I just had this intuitive flash that we need to be looking at people in the infrared and ultraviolet, not just the visible light spectrum. In other words, don't just look at someone for bruisings or marks or cuts or scars and things like that, but to look at the invisible as well. And so I asked her if it was, said, I have a black light present. Would you mind if I looked at your exposed area, arm space, and that sort of thing? And black light, she said, well, what are you looking for? I said, well, I'm not really sure. I said, I just would like to see if there's any possible trace evidence that was left. And she said, well, of course. And at that point, I looked on her arms, on the inside of her arms, outside, and on the inside of her right arm, there was a heart-like shaped blue fluorescent mark. And this thing was about 2.5 inches across. It's quite large. It was, it's actually what it looked like to me more than anything was a Mandelbrot set. A Mandelbrot set is a mathematical construction of, which means chaos and order in fractal geometry. And that was, she was so startled and upset by seeing that. She kept saying, what the blankety blank is that? And I said, I don't know. And of course, we've learned a lot since then. We realized that there's two kinds of fluorescence primarily that the alien leaves on people when they have physical contact with them. One is like long fingers or, things like this are pretty identifiable. It's obvious that something touched you and left a sweat-like trace of fluorescence on you, which is invisible unless you use a black light. You're not going to see it. The second thing was the kind that she had on her, which we call a procedural contact, where they used a device or something that they had been touching, and it left a fluorescent Mandelbrot set on the inside of her arm. But the interesting thing about the case is she became quite upset and ran to the bathroom and started scrubbing and scraping and as hard as she could, much like a rape victim, trying to get whatever it was off of her. And she was just really upset and quite excited and scrubbing as hard as she could on the inside of her arm. And the harder she scrubbed, the brighter it got, because this stuff won't come off. It finally gets absorbed after about 8 to 12 hours.
Wow.
What color was it, Derrel?
It was a bright blue, and it was very, very clear, very distinctive, and like I said, it was most disturbing to her. And of course, we were sitting there scratching our heads like, good night, come on to something here.
Now, you're known as the alien hunter, and that's your presentation in Philly on October 29th. You're going to talk about a particular case, but how did you get that name as the alien hunter? Have you come close to catching an alien? Tell us a little bit about that side of it.
Well, the short answer to what is the alien or how did that occur is I hunt them that hunted me since I was 4 years old, and then later they came and hunted my son. Now, you can mess with me, and I'll live with it and get over it, and, you know, I'm a big guy, I'll figure it out. But if you mess with my kids, you've got problems.
Yeah.
Because I'll hunt you down. So the second answer to the question is, have we ever come close to catching one? We've actually come close 3 times to catching one of the entities. The last case where I took a group of investigators up to the Snowmass Wilderness in Colorado, because we had my senior investigator had, every time he goes up there on vacation, he always ends up getting abducted in the Snowmass Wilderness area. And in fact, that's the first case with him that I had investigated with him on his behalf, and that's where he got picked up in that event, is in Colorado. So I took a group of investigators up there and used him as bait. And it's a complex story, but the bottom line is the entities never showed up whatsoever until the last night, and they came by several people's tents because people could hear them. The first group of people that I had waiting for this, the husband and wife, they said, "Did you hear that?" And they set up in their camp, in their tent, late at night, and the husband looks at her and says, "It's just a deer. Go back, sleep." It's like they were programmed, and they both laid down and went to sleep. This is not what they were trained to do. And then the next thing that happened is the entity came near my tent, and I could see outside, from inside my tent to the outside, I could see the light shining in the middle of the camp on the side of my tent, and I could see the outline of the entity. He was no more than 20 inches or 2 feet at the most from me, because, on the outside of my tent. And I wanted him to come inside the tent, because if he did, that's when I was going to try and capture him. And anyway, the long and the short of the story is that he was scratching on the outside of my tent, and I knew what that meant. A lot of people think, well, they scratch on the tent to scare you. That's not at all what they're doing. The entities are the small guys. The little gray guy is not very intelligent. They have an IQ about 80 to 85, and they're not the sharpest knife in that drawer. Believe me, the other entities are a lot smarter than they are. So what he was trying to do was get inside the tent. The people up in the craft, the alien up in the craft is watching that thing. He can create a little portal there in your tent so that the entity can walk through, or a wall or anything else like in an abduction. And he was thinking he could just come on in, and he couldn't figure out why he's scratching on the tent. He can't figure out why he can't just walk through it. And what it is, they're protecting him. They can see me in the tent. He can't. And he's fixing to walk in there and get caught, or something's going to happen that he's not going to like. So we ended up missing him out of that. They got him out of there. But the entity was either seen or felt or heard by 5 people in 5 different tents. So it was pretty interesting. We came real close to getting him that time.
You said it was a gray?
It was a gray-like being, best I can describe. His head was different than I have ever seen on any entity. His head, he stood no more than 3 foot tall, and his head was at least a third of his body size.
Wow.
I've never seen one with a head like that. It was very strange.
All right. Well, Derrel, we're almost out of time. For those that want to see you in person, you'll be at our conference in Bucks County. You can register at MUFONPA.com. That's on October 28th and 29th. We have a cocktail hour Friday night, and then the conference and a dinner on Saturday. You know, I read an interesting quote, Derrel, that when you look into the unknown or the paranormal, it looks into you. How do you what's your thoughts on that, that when you start looking at them, they start looking at you?
Well, I have a belief very similar to the Dr. Carla Turner, who's a dear friend of mine.
Yeah.
She told me, she said, Derrel, nobody gets in this phenomena accidentally. You've either had contact, in her view, you're an abductee if you're in it. I said, well, I don't think that's necessarily true. I said, because I know a number of investigators are not abductees. But certainly, if you involve yourself in this, if you're supposed to be in it, you're gonna find things that may be bigger than your questions.
Yep, I agree with you. So, hey, Derrel, we're about out of time. I'm looking forward to seeing you again, and I will see you next month in Philadelphia. Thanks for being on.
Outstanding. I love the conference, and you guys are absolutely wonderful, and I'm looking so forward to this.
All right, thank you, Derrel.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.